Hey everyone, thank you so much for coming by my channel today. If you are new here, my name is Kim and I'm an elementary school teacher here in Japan. I am currently working in Yokohama. Before coming to Japan, I was an elementary school teacher in Los Angeles, and that was over 30 years ago. So it's been quite a while. Another thing that's been quite a while is posting here, and I sincerely apologize for the long lapse between videos. I usually post about teaching or quirky things in Japan, places I like to go, places I like to eat, things I like to experience, and sometimes I like to do live streams to talk with all of you and just share bits and pieces of my life. A huge part of my life in Japan was spent with my Pomeranian, Sinbad. I got him when I was living in Shizuoka back in 2007, and we enjoyed 15 and a half wonderful years together. Not all smooth sailing. In between those years, we found out that Sinbad had a blood condition. I don't know the terms in English. I don't even know them in Japanese, but it was a condition where he was bleeding internally. We had to keep a very close watch on his blood levels, so that meant going to the veterinarian practically at one time. It was every week. There was a time when it was twice a week. And gradually it went to maybe twice a month to 3 months. And during the past, maybe 2 years, we went to the vet about every 3 months to get blood levels checked and get refills of his medication. When he was first diagnosed, he was on so much medication. He was taking a lot of pills, but it did get his condition under control. And during that time, we also found out that he had tracheal collapse. I hope I pronounced that right. So we had to make sure that he didn't live a stressful life. And we made sure that he got exercise, but we still had to monitor that as well. That eventually kind of affected his heart, so it was really important for him to lose weight, which was hard. And all in all, it was just, since the time he was diagnosed from 6 years of age, it meant probably a dedication and a commitment for me to make sure that, number one, that I worked hard to keep healthy so that I could take care of him. Two, that I could work hard to maintain the finances that it takes to take care of a dog that is maybe ill, battling something, or later in life might need operations or whatever. I am so grateful that we had pet insurance. That was bought the day that I got him. So when he was a puppy, he was covered, and we never had to use it until that time. And thank goodness for that, because medication can be expensive, as those of you that are fellow pet parents or pet owners know. And sometimes it comes at a time when maybe your own life is not financially stable. So in that sense, we really had to keep on a tight budget, and I had to make sure that I had enough funds to make sure that I could take care of any emergencies that came up and finance his medicine. There were times that it was pretty rough. I remember one time I went to the vet for a vet visit, and I paid the entire bill in coins because I didn't have, I didn't have the bill, so everything was in 500 yen and 100 yen coins, which can be a little bit embarrassing when you're paying almost $200 in coins. But you do what you can to get by. And for me, having a dog, owning a dog, loving a dog, you would give anything to make sure that your baby is taken care of and that they get the best care and treatment, which is what I wanted to ensure. And if that meant sacrificing vacations, trips, clothes, luxury items, what have you, I was willing to do it. And I'm glad I did. And I promised myself I'm not going to cry in this video, so I'm getting a little teary-eyed, but I'm going to stop right there. This past July 10th, 2022, Sinbad, my Pomeranian, passed away I am extremely grateful and thankful that I was there at the time when it happened. And I know, it's kind of, maybe for some people, they wouldn't want to be there when their loved one passes away. But for me, being able to see that and experience that with, the person or pet that is passing away, I think it's easier to put closure, because if I had not been present when he passed away, I would have always wondered, did he suffer? Was he scared? Like the million things that go through your head. And because it happened in front of me, with me right by, his side, well, in front of him. I wasn't by his side. I was right in front of him. I know that he didn't suffer, and I know that it was peaceful, and it wasn't, I don't think, painful. If I had seen him struggling or, looking like he was suffering, I think that would have mentally destroyed me. I think it would have been a lot harder, but it was a lot easier just, seeing him go to the other side peacefully. I was also a little bit worried because I knew Sinbad was a senior dog, and I knew that, he was living probably close to either the last year or two, if we were lucky, of his life, with all the medical conditions, with him being older, and just, I was prepared for it. So I think I was already prepared, too, to have to deal with senior dog struggles. I had talked about it with my aunt. I had talked about it with friends that I met through Periscope. Most of my immediate friends here in Japan don't own dogs or pets. A lot of my close friends that did have went back to the U.S. So there really wasn't anyone that I could kind of discuss things with. But I did know from talking to my friends that did have pets that having a senior dog can sometimes be very mentally stressful, because you see them, basically deteriorating, and there's nothing you can do. You feel helpless. You want to try and give them the most comfortable, end of their life as you can, but seeing them and just seeing the struggles they might be going through would be difficult. And I guess I was blessed that Sinbad spared me all that. He was kind of going through like I knew he was like not feeling well the week before he passed. Actually, it wasn't even a week. It was just a few days. So I had went to the neighborhood vet instead of the vet that I usually go to in Gunma, because I didn't think I could, well, number one, I didn't have the time at that time to get to Gunma. And I thought, okay, if I have to go, I'll go on this particular day. But I knew, it was important for Sinbad to be seen ASAP. And, the vet kind of, was looking at him. Whoops, excuse the sounds. That's rain. And so I made him as comfortable as possible, and Sinbad seemed to be doing okay, but he wasn't keeping his food down. I knew he was having trouble, using the toilet, and I've heard from my friends that this process or this phase sometimes can go on for months, and it just actually went on for maybe 2 or 3 days. And the night before Sinbad passed away, when he was throwing up, that's when he sort of collapsed, and I knew it was a lot more serious than just his food or the medicine not agreeing with him. Sunday we usually go to the market, my mother and I, and we went to the market, and I was intending to get some, easy to eat food. I had talked with a couple of friends, and they said, if your dog's not eating, sometimes boiling chicken helps, or sometimes this helps. So we had went to the market, and I had got some things, and when we came back, Sinbad was, just laying in his bed, and it was about, I don't know the exact time, it was between 12 and 1 o'clock. He sort of, was just laying comfortably, and then he lifted his head, And when he lifted his head, I immediately went down. And he was very, very quiet, and his mouth just kind of opened like a fish, 3 times or so. And then he just laid his head down, and then I was pretty sure that he had passed away. But I wasn't positive, because you want to believe that they're just sleeping. But I called out to my mom. She came running down, and we knew that he had passed over. Ugh. So, okay, I can do this. I keep see, otherwise we're going to have to wait another 2 months and if I don't get this done. So, so after that, the hardest part, especially when you're living in a foreign country, is, okay, what do I do next? I was not in the U.S. when my husky passed away. My dad was with my husky when Sundance passed, and I was in university when my poodle, Smokey, passed away. So I never really dealt with the death of a dog in front of me. At the time when both Smokey and Sundance passed, they were at the animal hospital, and the vet took care of the arrangements, I suppose. I didn't know exactly what happened. My dad took care of both instances, but Sinbad was the first time I had actually, had to deal with the death of a pet. And I didn't know what to do. Like, who do you call? What do you do with the body? All that stuff. So it was a good lesson for me, and I knew I had to take action quickly. So I had my mom there, and I had put, Sinbad, as you guys know, always slept on those ice pillows. So he was on top of the ice pillows, and just to keep him, comfortable or not that he was feeling anything, but I put the ice pillows around him, and I immediately went to the neighborhood pet store. The vet, at that time, they had like this lunch break, so nobody was there, but the front desk person was. And I just immediately asked her, and I said, my dog passed away at home. What do I do? So I don't know if this is all of Japan. I'm sure there are videos or things that can tell you what to do. I actually did watch one YouTube video about what someone did in Japan, and I kind of followed a little bit of what his advice was, and I just sort of was looking, but a lot of the videos I saw didn't really discuss the questions that I had, or answered the questions that I had. So the first thing I was told is that I have to call a memorial service, or I have to call a memorial company that will come and help me take care of the body. I later learned that I think there's a number that you can call at your local city hall, but since Sinbad was such a special dog to me, I was going to do whatever it took, even if it was probably a luxury expense, but I did want him to have a proper little service, and I wanted to be able to have his ashes with my dad's ashes, which my mom keeps in a little memorial at our house. And maybe it's because of, maybe for some of you that might be a little bit strange, but I was raised Buddhist. My mother was Buddhist, my father was Shinto, and in the traditions that we follow is that bodies are cremated and the ashes are kept in an urn. Sometimes these urns are placed in memorial places or in the burial plot or whatever, the temple plot. I know my grandmother that's here in Japan, her ashes are somewhere in Kyoto. My mom had asked for or requested my dad's ashes to be brought to Japan, so my brother was kind enough to bring the ashes, so my mom has that, and so I wanted Sinbad's to be with us as well. So these memorial services, or these is that what you call it, memorial? memorial halls or whatever, they help you make the arrangements. The front lady gave me 2 pet memorial referrals, and I chose one called Pet Angel, which I'll link down below for anyone that perhaps might need this service in the future, or might be curious about what happens or what it entails cost-wise and option-wise. So I called up the service as the front office lady told me to do. She said you make an appointment and you make the arrangements, and she said usually they leave the dog with you so that you can properly say goodbye, which to me was that was the part that was a little bit surprising, because it meant having to keep Sinbad's body in the house for a period of time, and I wasn't quite sure what you do. But luckily this receptionist, or the woman that I dealt with at Pet Angel, was an angel herself. Number one, it's at a time when you're really under a lot of stress and very, very emotional, and you're just very fragile. At the drop of the hat you start crying, or it's really hard to get business stuff taken care of. And I thought, holy moly, if I'm this much of a mess for my pet, what's going to happen when it's a family member? And even my mom said for her it was a learning experience, because should I go before my mom's going to have to take care of my body and all this. And it kind of gave us a heads up that we have to be prepared, and we have to know what to do, and what we want as individuals, etc., etc. So the lady was extremely sensitive to what we needed or what I was asking, and we chose a plan that was what I wanted, but I didn't really understand everything I was choosing. But in the end, I was extremely happy with the package that I chose. The first step was choosing a date for me to bring the body to be cremated and to give whatever type of service I wanted for Sinbad. Not that we have any friends here, and not that we would, we have any buddy in our family except for my mom that would come to the funeral. And I didn't even know if my mom would be willing to, because my mom's afraid of dogs, and she never really had the same type of connection that I did with Sinbad. But my mom was 100% on board with coming to whatever service we were planning to have. So we chose the day, and it was actually a day and a half. I guess it was like two days before we would take the body to the place. So I was told to cover Sinbad's body with ice packs and keep it cool. She said that rigor mortis would probably have set in within the 2 hours, and it had already been 2 hours, so it did set in. Thank goodness Sinbad was in a sleeping position, so he didn't look uncomfortable. I'm sure if your pet is in a different position, you want to change them so they look more at peace as soon as possible. I didn't do that, but like I said, Sinbad was in a position where he looked like he was sleeping. And they also said that if you're concerned about the cavities of your dog, to stuff them with cotton. But because we keep our house pretty cool, I didn't really have to worry about that. They said if you want to close the eyes or do whatever, and that was kind of hard, I will admit, because here is your pet, the shell of your pet, and you've got to still touch and keep him clean. And that was another thing they said, to get him cleaned so that when he's ready to come to the crematorium, they will put him in the basket, and I could just bring him in his bed, just as is, or I could put him in a cardboard box. We just kept him in his bed. He was covered with his ice pillows, and he was pretty clean before that, because since he had been throwing up, I had kind of made sure that he was clean. So it was spending 2 nights still sleeping, still going through my daily routines, yet having Sinbad's body there. That was really, really difficult. My partner teacher and my school was so supportive. I was able to take 2 days off to spend those last moments with Sinbad, and also to be able to be emotionally free of having to deal with students and school stuff. The service was on a Tuesday, and yes, so the service that we chose included the basket that he was going to be cremated in, and it also included a white comforter and flowers. What else? There were just a number of things. They were all sort of extravagant, I suppose, but like I said, when it's your pet and you're saying goodbye, you just kind of want the best, and you want to feel comfortable that he is getting a good send-off to the next life. If that's what you believe, that's what I believe. When you bring your dog to the crematorium, they ask you to bring a serving of food. In Buddhist tradition, when you go into the next life, you're usually taking with you like some food or something to help you on the journey to get there. So I had a serving of his food already. It was still in packs and baggies, and I didn't have a bowl. They just said to bring the food, and then they asked to write a letter. So I spent the night before writing a farewell letter. I recorded it, and I took photos of it. I will save the recording of that for another video when I can do a decent tribute to Sinbad. This is what I wanted to do, but every time I keep starting that video, I just end up in tears, and it's just too emotionally fragile right now. So I thought I'd just make this video first, explaining it, and then I'll do the tribute at another time. But yeah, they ask you to write a letter, and you are welcome to send photographs, up to 3 photographs to put in your letter. No clothes, no toys, no articles like no leashes, no harnesses. Pretty strict about what can be burnt. And then when the food is all taken out of its containers and wraps or whatever, and just put into a paper cup or a paper bowl, everything is made so that it's, of course, safe when it's burned. So nothing that could be toxic or detrimental to the environment. So we gathered all that together, and on the Tuesday, my mom and I went in the car. That was kind of hard because we had to carry the bed with his body still on ice packs, and I had towels covering it, and I brought it to the car, and then we drove to the place, and luckily Pet Angel was just down the hill from us. Who knew? It was right across from our city hall. I drove by the day before to see what it was like, and I never would have expected that that was a pet crematorium. The people there were, gosh, wonderful. They greet you, they know that you are grieving, they help you, they take your dog and put it into the basket, and then they wheel the basket to a private room. We had a private room. However, you can choose an option where you have your dog cremated with other dogs. That's like a group ceremony. So let's say that you don't want a service, a private service. You can opt for a group service, and they burn, or they cremate, I guess I shouldn't say burn, they cremate several dogs at the same time. However, you cannot be guaranteed that the ashes or the bones of your pet are yours, because they get mixed up. So it does cost a little bit more to have an individual service, but that's what we chose. Once we had the basket, we were taken to a beautiful room. It was very simply decorated. I don't mean it to sound cheesy, but I was married in Las Vegas, and I was married at the Little White Chapel. I am no longer married, but this was back when I did get married. And for those of you that are familiar with Las Vegas style weddings, sometimes they're a little bit different. They're very inexpensive, but they go full on the little props and the decorations. So you can have a fun, nice, memorable wedding. And it's maybe not the classic wedding, but it's still a wedding. I'm not saying that for all Las Vegas weddings, because there are some chapels out there that are beautiful and you can get the ceremony you want maybe for a cheaper cost than you would if you were going to like a bigger chapel. I kind of think it's the same with these pet memorials. You can go super big and have all these luxuries and decorations, or you can go simple, which is what we did. We were also asked to bring a photo of Sinbad, so they put the photo in a nice frame, and they put the frame at the altar. The altar was decorated with lots and lots of flowers. Some were artificial, but most of them were real, and it was just a beautiful area. I know some people don't like to maybe see photos of, funerals or what happened, so you can skip this part if it triggers you, but I wanted to keep it as sort of a memory and just share with people what your options are if you happen to be a pet owner here in Japan and are unfamiliar with what to do afterwards. So the ceremony, we didn't have like somebody come in, but as far as giving the ceremony, they had Sinbad in the basket. And they asked my mother and I to decorate the basket with flowers, put the letter in his basket and the serving of food, and he was covered with he was on a white blanket, and we just kind of put the flowers all around. And yeah, it was, it sounds like it would be difficult, but it wasn't. It was very much like putting closure, and for my mom and I to be able to do it together, it meant a lot. After that, the woman gave us some time alone, and we said our prayers or whatever. I think you can get somebody to give a sermon if you wanted to, but we probably wouldn't have been able to understand it anyway. They also give you the option of getting a final paw print, and so we did that. We got the Sinbad's paw print, and then they come in with several different urns, I guess, or I don't know what you call it, things to keep the ashes in, and you get to choose. So I chose, and they have different plans. If you wanted to keep your dog's ashes in that particular crematorium, they have a place, kind of like a memorial hall, where you can keep a picture or a photo or photos of your dog along with the ashes, and then you can go and visit, kind of like a cemetery, or like a memorial place where you can go and visit your dog. But like I said, we opted to keep Sinbad's ashes at home. They have a beautiful selection of home altars for those of you that want to get an altar at home. You can also get them on Amazon, as we did. We ordered one on Amazon. And then after you say your goodbyes or do your ceremony service, then the person that's in charge of the cremating comes in, and he wheels you to I guess it's the furnace. I don't know what they call it, but you go in, and it's it's a little bit somber and it's hard, but I think because I had already put closure, or I had already been at peace with everything that had happened, I knew that this was the step to send Sinbad off to the next life. I was reading on a website or somewhere that if it's raining on the day that you do a cremation, it means that the gates of pet heaven are opening, and if you hear thunder, then that's when your pet has entered the afterlife or pet heaven. And ironically enough, it was raining that day, and there had been a little bit of thunder. And so whether you believe in these types of traditions or omens or not, it's up to you. But for me, I took it as a sign that, all right, Sinbad made it to heaven. He's there. And when you hear the thunder, you're like, okay, great. He's there safely. He can go play with my dad and my other 2 dogs, Sundance and Smokey, who are waiting for him, and any of your pets that have passed. I'm just thinking in my head, they're having a welcome party for Sinbad. So yeah, so the cremation, it wasn't as bad as I thought. There's a few types of prayers or bowing that's typical to Buddhist or Shinto tradition, and the guy kind of says a little blessing. Sorry, I hope my nose isn't dripping. So the guy kind of said a few prayers, and then they put him in the place and they close the big iron door, and then they ask you, or you just kind of say your farewells, and then they take you to a waiting room. So on that particular day, there was a family of maybe 5 or 6 that was in the waiting room. They were holding the picture of their dog, and my mom and I sat, and it's a little waiting area with vending machines, so you could have relax, and then a lot of displays of mementos. And in this package deal that I had got, you can get a little I guess it's like a little charm holder, and it's a keepsake. I thought it was to put a little bit of your pet's ashes in, and you keep as a memento, but it was actually to keep a bone, which I'll tell you about a little bit later. But yeah, and they have different jewelries. I'm gonna just wipe my nose. They have like different jewelries. You can get like memento necklaces, plaques, all different kinds of things. Didn't need to go to that extent, but yeah, it was a nice little selection, very reasonably priced. They also have things that you could use for your altars, such as the candles, and then there are certain times that you make offerings, and so they have little places or little dishes that you could put your offerings in, all that kind of stuff. So we looked at them, and I kind of got an idea of what I wanted to get for Sinbad, but I was going to order mine online. And then the cremation guy, or I'm sorry, I don't know what the correct terms are, but the guy came in and he asked if we would like to view the bones. In traditional Buddhist cremations, the family goes and they view the bones, and then there's a ceremony where you pick up the bones and put them into the urn before the bones are crushed and made into the powder. I always thought it was ashes, but it's actually like the bone powder that you're collecting. And at first I thought I wasn't going to do that, because I've never done it with any family member. All my family members, like my grandparents, have been cremated, but we've never went to the ceremony like that. And I've read about it all the time, and if you read guidebooks or tradition books, I'm sure all of you have read the warning not to pass food with chopstick to chopstick, or not to leave your chopsticks in rice, because it's the process of passing bones is done with chopsticks. So it's sort of a bad luck custom if you're doing that with food. So I was familiar with all that, but I had never been to an actual bone viewing. And my mom didn't want to see that, and I totally respect that. But I thought, no, this is my baby. I'm going to go see it. And so they took me into the room, and I guess because, I don't know, maybe it's the teacher in me, but seeing the bones was kind of fascinating. And it wasn't disturbing as people might have thought. It may be disturbing for some. I get that. I don't know whether I could have done it if it was a human. But everything was so little, you know, and that was sort of weird, just seeing everything so little. And then the guy explains which bones are what part, which was kind of interesting, like, you know, this is this bone, this is this bone. And then he said I can pick up and choose one bone to put in the keepsake, in the little, it's like a little key holder thing. And some of the bones were too big, so I just chose a paw. I'd like a bit of his paw bone, hand bone. And he put it in the little memento thing. And then he said he's going to do the crushing of the bones, and he'll bring the powder out. It'll be about 10 or 15 minutes or whatever time he said. And so to wait back in the waiting room. So I went back, and then after that was all over, he comes back, presents it in the urn, and they give us all these different papers. They gave us a beautiful poem about Rainbow Bridge. I think it was originally written perhaps in English, but this one was all translated into Japanese. And so I had both the English and the Japanese. And then, yeah, that was it. So coming home, I felt like closure was done. Once again, I felt like, because we heard that thunder, I felt that Sinbad was safely in pet heaven. And yeah, then it was time to move forward with life. And all of you guys know, when you lose a loved one, whether it be in a relationship breakup, and by death, by distance separation, it's not as easy to move forward as you would think, because you still have to deal with memories popping up at the most random times. You still have to deal with feeling presences when, you know, there is none, or finding something that belonged to your loved one when you're cleaning out the house. And I knew I had to spend the next couple of days cleaning and sorting things out. So yeah, so that was kind of hard. Luckily, I was able to find a friend who was going to take Sinbad's leftover treats and food, because I didn't want it to go to waste. And my friend has a dog that is also older, or getting older, and so perhaps the senior food would, you know, be okay for their pet to eat. But the treats, yeah, a lot of that. It was really hard. I didn't give away Sinbad's clothes because I knew someday I would get another dog. So I saved a lot of Sinbad's clothes. I saved a lot of Sinbad's toys. I saved a lot of Sinbad's stuff. Some I put on his little memorial, and some I just am keeping because I want to keep it. So that was that. Moved forward. It was still hard to talk about it, and obviously, as you know from my lack of posting, it was just hard to get back into video stuff. And then, let's see. In Buddhist tradition, 49 days after the death of someone, there's a little memorial service, and that is the day that is said to be the last day of mourning, and when the soul officially passes into the afterlife. And so Sinbad's 49-day ceremony was on August 27th. There is also a memorial that you do on the 100th day, and that is coming in October. So that's still several weeks away. But, oh gosh, I guess after a month or throughout August, the end of July and then the beginning of August, I just felt like something was missing in my life. And, some people would say get a new pet right away. Some people would say don't get a new pet right away. Some people say, how do you know when it's time? It was just a lot of questions. I knew I wanted to get a new pet, but I just didn't know exactly which direction I was going to go in. Japan does have rescue dogs, and they do have shelters, but unfortunately the choices that were available to me from what I was able to do, because I don't always understand all the Japanese that's written or all the protocol, so I was basically kind of researching everything on my own. Basically, a lot of the dogs that are available for adoption were beautiful, and I would love to save every single one of them, but situation does matter and does play a huge role in whether or not you're going to be the right parent for a dog that is being rescued. I would love to have had the finances and the big yard and all that, but most Japanese homes are small. Even the place that I own in Shizuoka, it's still like a condominium. It does allow pets, but it wouldn't be fair to get a large dog because I wouldn't have the yard or the time at this particular time in my life to go walking and exercising it all the time. The other thing is I do live with my mom, and my mom is afraid of dogs. She's never been a dog or a cat person. She's never even been like a hamster or a bird person. She's just not a pet person. But she is willing, or she was willing to be with a small pet, and Sinbad was okay. Sinbad and her did not have the best relationship because I think she was a little bit nervous and scared around Sinbad, and Sinbad knew that. So Sinbad, I think, intimidated her. And even though, he wouldn't have hurt her or anything, I think he was very protective of me, and I think he wasn't too crazy about my mom or having to share places with my mom. So I thought by getting a small dog, it would be important for my mom to be able to bond with whatever dog I got. And most of the dogs that I looked at were all a little bit too big or a little bit too intimidating looking. I'm not saying that they were mean dogs or mistreat or whatever. It was just, I think they would have been intimidating to my mom. The other option for when you go to these rescue places, or some of the dogs that were available, there were a lot of senior dogs, and it broke my heart. I understand, because maybe some families can't take care of a senior dog, or maybe the circumstances of that particular owner, they weren't able to take care of their pet. I think it's really sad, but I could not mentally go through dealing with the senior dog so soon after Sinbad had passed. If I had rescued a senior dog that was like 13 years old, and maybe the dog had a good 2 or 3 more years or so, but that would mean going through the whole thing that I just went through with Sinbad, and I honestly did not feel strong enough to be able to do that. I commend the people that are strong enough, or that are at a place in their lives where they can help a senior dog, but I couldn't. So that was the line of thinking I was going on. Originally, I had planned to get another Pomeranian because I love the breed and I'm familiar with the breed, and I thought I just wanted to get a different color because I didn't want to get a Pomeranian that looked just like Sinbad. I didn't want to get another white Pomeranian. There would just be too many comparisons. So I thought, I'm going to just look at other Pomeranians. And I did. But I was still comparing because I tried to be very objective, but all I kept thinking is, okay, this one is cute, but what if he's not as perky as Sinbad? Or what if, like Sinbad was so easy to bring home and he just did everything on his own. He knew how to go to the bathroom. He was very easy with separation and all that. And I thought, what if this new puppy isn't? I haven't had any experience raising a female dog. I do want to, and I do plan to, but I've always had male dogs, so I thought it might be best to keep with the male and then get the female after. I really wanted to get 2 dogs, and then everything I read said, don't get 2 puppies at the same time because it'll be crazy. Get one, and then as you get more comfortable or settled, maybe add the second one. So that's what I'm planning to do. And then I was just having fun looking. I guess it was seriously looking. I was looking, but I just didn't know when the right one would strike me. I know maybe for many of you, you just kind of, I don't know, everybody has their own beliefs, but I always believe that the next dog I get, I will know because it's a sign from my previous dog. Whether it be a twinkle in the eye, a little quirk that they do, or just a message like, I'm your previous dog reincarnated, pick me. Is as crazy as it sounds, that's how I got Sinbad, because I knew that Sundance, my husky, would be sending me the message, this is the one. And when I was looking for a Pomeranian at the time, I was intent on getting an orange coat, a orangish brown rust-colored Pomeranian, not a white one. And it changed. I knew Sinbad was the right one. So, so I was looking, and I went to go look at a Pomeranian at one place. Unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, because I do think they're adorable, it was a white Pomeranian, and the Pomeranian happened to be playing with this Chihuahua. So I thought, oh gosh, look at that Chihuahua. Look how cute he is. Look how fun. Oh my goodness. And I sat and I watched the 2 dogs play for quite a long time. And not knowing anything about Chihuahuas, I came home and I started doing some research. And I had been meeting people online mourning or helping me get through the death of Sinbad, not realizing that they were mourning the loss of their Chihuahuas. Everything, the omens were just too strong. So I decided to look into things, and then I decided to pay a visit and inquire about the Chihuahua, but it was 2 days after the initial time I saw, so I thought, okay, this is fate. If that Chihuahua's gone or taken, it wasn't meant to be. I'm going to leave you with that, and I'm going to continue part 2 when I introduce my Chihuahua Bandit to you in another video. I just wanted to hurry up and get this one out, just kind of going through the procedures that we went through. And, if it is hard if you are in another country and you're not quite sure about the customs. So if you should happen to be someone that is living in Japan and maybe you brought your dog over, or you have a dog or a cat here during your stay in Japan, and if it just happens to be that time where you have to say farewell, or you're going through the loss of your pet and you need someone to talk to, I'm here, so you can just message me in the comments or send me an email. And if any of you have any questions, if you're planning to bring your pet over, or if you're planning to get a pet and you're not sure of what happens or what you're supposed to do or what your options are of what to do, feel free to contact me, because like I said, I knew nothing and I had to kind of research a lot. So a lot of the things that we chose not to do, I did read up about that, and that includes things like where to put ashes, or where you can spread ashes, where you can bury pets, if you can bury pets, if you can spread ashes, if you can keep them with you when you pass, all that kind of stuff. So I didn't put this all in this video. That could be another video. But yeah, I did have to do a lot of research, and I feel pretty comfortable discussing it. I got through this video pretty much without that much tears. I did get teary-eyed and emotional at a couple of parts, but I will wait until I feel a little bit mentally stronger and emotionally stronger before I do my tribute video, including the reading of the letter that I did, because that was hard. But I can't wait to introduce Bandit to you, so stay tuned for that video. If you made it all the way through this long video, thank you so much. I appreciate not only your support here, but just the kind words and thoughts and messages that I've got. It's still hard to believe that it just happened, you know, less than 2 months ago. And I can still, sometimes I'm just walking by and I see something that reminds me of Sinbad and I start bawling. So now I have Bandit to take care of, and yeah, that's keeping me busy, and it also brought new life back into our house. So anyways, thank you for stopping by, and I hope to see you again. Please feel free to like and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next video. Thank you so much.